Today we're talking about geometric attributes and shapes. What are attributes? They are properties of a shape or object. When we talk about properties, we're going to look at the lines or the size of the shape and the angles. So if we're talking about lines, we're going to focus on, are the lines parallel? If they are parallel, it means they never meet. They go on and on and on. Or we're talking about intersecting lines. They have a point in common, or they are perpendicular lines, lines that create square corners. So again, parallel lines are lines that never meet, like the size of a highway. Intersecting and perpendicular, they will have a point in common, and they will create angles or corners inside. The perpendicular lines are very important to us because they will create square corners. So let's talk about angles now. The right angle is the angle that measures 90 degrees and create a perfect square corner. So this is a right angle. And of course, if you have perpendicular lines, they create four right angles. We mark the right angles with a little square or rectangle. If you put a rectangle or square, they'll fit perfectly. The acute angle is an angle that is smaller than a square corner. If you put a rectangle, you will see the rectangle still goes on after the line. Now, the obtuse angle is bigger than a square corner. So you still have a gap and an obtuse angle. The right angle is 90 degrees. The acute angle is less than 90 degrees, and an obtuse angle is any number greater than 90 degrees. Another way is right on 90 degrees. Acute baby is an acute angle, and obtuse, most obtuse big animals are the obtuse angles. So that is what we're going to use to classify our shapes. The polygons are closed figures with straight sides. So what's the smallest closed figure you can have? A triangle. There are three types of triangles: the acute, obtuse, and right. An acute triangle will have all acute angles. So we need to look very careful and decide, are these three angles smaller than 90 degrees? If that is, then you have an acute triangle. But if you have one obtuse angle, one angle that is bigger than 90 degrees, you have an obtuse triangle. Now, one will be obtuse, but they will have two acute angles. There is no other way. A right triangle is a triangle that has one square corner. If you can figure it out, if they have one 90 degrees angle, then you have a right triangle. You cannot have more than one because otherwise your shape won't close. If you have two right angles, you cannot close your triangle. So your triangle can have only one right angle and one obtuse to be right or obtuse. Again, acute is the angle that is a triangle that has three acute angles. Obtuse will have one obtuse and two acute, and a right triangle, one right and two acute angles. Quadrilaterals. If we add one more side, we have quadrilaterals. These are a special one. We have the square and the rectangle. The square and the rectangle, they both have four sides and they both have four right angles. What is the difference? The difference is the square have all congruent sides. Congruence means the same size, same shape. But the rectangle, only the opposite sides are congruent. It means that these two are the same, but these two are different. Another thing is that all sides are parallel. They have two sets of parallel sides. So a square and rectangle are similar in that aspect. They all have perpendicular lines. That's why they all have right angles, parallel sides, and the only difference is that in the square, all four sides are the same. In the rectangle, only opposite sides are the same. Other important quadrilaterals, the parallelogram, it has two sets of parallel sides, but different than the square and the rectangle, they have two acute and two obtuse angles. Obviously, these are the obtuse angles, and these are the acute angles. So it's important to recognize those. But you can see this side and this side are parallel. They'll never meet no matter how much I extend. And then this side and this side are parallel. That's why we say there are two sets. So parallelogram, all sides are parallel, not necessarily congruent, and they don't have right angles. Trapezoids are the odd out because they do have four sides like any quadrilateral, but they have different shapes. They have only one set of parallel sides. So different than the parallelogram, rectangle, and square, the trapezoids have only one set of parallel. These and these are parallel, this and these are parallel. The other one are not, because if you continue this, they will meet somewhere. Okay, what about the angles? The angles are different. There might be two right, one obtuse and one acute, or two obtuse. For example, oh, I'm sorry, this is my other obtuse. They have acute, acute, obtuse, and obtuse. That's a little hard to see. You have to manipulate the shape and figure that out. But it's pretty easy for us to remember that the trapezoids used to be a triangle, that we cut them. That's one way that we can use to remember them. And that they don't have the sets of parallel lines that we talk about. So it takes us a little bit of time to figure out what are acute and which one are obtuse angles. We need to look at them carefully, especially if we don't have a protractor. But you can see this is acute again, and these two are open up, so they are obtuse angles. These are trapezoids, and this is the parallelogram. It looks like a box that you step on. Now, what are the other polygons? We have a pentagon. It means it has 5 sides. Hexagon has 6. And octagram or octagon has 8 sides. What we remember is that the pentagon has no parallel lines. They are all intersecting. The hexagon will have some parallel lines. These are parallel, for example. And the octagram or octagon, I want to put it here, octagon. Is the stop sign. It does have 4 pairs of parallel sides. The more sides you add, the number of parallel sides will increase because they will have more chances. What do we need to remember about these polygons is that they all have obtuse angles, because the more sides you add, the angles will stretch out. So let's remember, the more lines, the angles will stretch out and they will be all obtuse. Also, the number of parallel sides will increase because they have more chances to run parallel to each other.